If you ever watched American Horror Story, this story might sound familiar. But here's what they didn't tell you. Madame LaLaurie was real. That mansion on Royal Street, still standing, and that horror inside, that wasn't fiction. That was history. And the scariest part, she got away with it. Madame LaLaurie was born Marie Delphine McCarty, part of one of the most powerful white Creole families in New Orleans. Now let me clear this up. When we say Creole, in this case, we're not talking about mixed heritage. Delphine was a white Creole, born into money, land, and power. Her cousin was Augustine de McCarty, the mayor of New Orleans from 1815 to 1820. He was part of that same elite McCarty bloodline. Now, for all my New Orleans people, y'all know we like to ask who your people is, because we always try to make the story make sense. Well, get this. Madame LaLaurie was the daughter of Louis McCarty, and Louis McCarty's plantation, that was located at 3820 St. Claude. So for those of you who know, that's Frederick Douglass High School. So yes, the same family name that owned that land also raised a woman who turned Royal Street into a horror show. And that's what makes this even worse. She wasn't some outsider or fringe figure. She was the elite. People admired her beauty, her money, and her charm. But behind those closed doors, something dark was happening, especially on that top floor. On April 10, 1834, a fire broke out in the kitchen. People thought it was an accident, but it wasn't. A 70-year-old enslaved woman chained to the stove set the fire on purpose. She told rescuers she would rather burn to death than to be taken back upstairs. Let that sink in. When firefighters kicked in the door to the attic, what they saw was beyond horror. People were chained to the walls, some wearing spiked iron collars like the ones we saw on Wilson Chin. Some were starving, bones visible through skin. Others were covered in open wounds, their flesh barely healing. One man had a hole drilled in his head, and another's limbs had been broken and reset in twisted, unnatural positions. Some were missing ears, eyes, or strips of skin. Mouths were sewn shut. There were even reports of intestines removed and wrapped around bodies. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't labor. This was torture, and it was intentional. Even in a time when slavery was legal, what she did was considered evil. Now I know what you're probably wondering. If slavery was legal, why were people so upset? Here's the truth. Whippings, people looked the other way. Beatings, normalized. But this? Sewing someone's mouth shut, drilling into skulls, starving people, breaking bones just to deform them? Even to slave owners, this looked insane. It blurred the line between a plantation mistress and a serial killer. The upper class didn't want that kind of attention. They didn't want the world questioning slavery itself, so they turned on her. A mob formed in the streets. They smashed her windows, tore apart furniture, tried to burn the place down. But Delphine, she was gone. With help from her powerful family, she escaped to France with no arrest, no trial, and no justice. Some say she died overseas. Others claim her body was smuggled back and buried in New Orleans under a fake name. To this day, her grave has never been confirmed. Today, people still say her house is haunted. Tour guides tell ghost stories. Hollywood turned her into a character. But don't let them fool you. This wasn't a ghost story. This was real. This was slavery, torture, and a woman who used her power to hurt and get away with it. Madame LaLaurie wasn't a legend. She wasn't a spirit. She was a serial killer and a protected monster. And the people she tortured, they were real human beings. People who were erased from history while she became a tourist attraction. Till this day, her mansion is one of the most visited spots in New Orleans. And you see, that's why we tell these stories, because they'd rather we didn't. But we remember, and we're not going to let you forget. Every time you like, comment, and share, you help keep this story alive. Remember to subscribe for more stories that they don't put in your textbooks. Peace.